Good morning. It is January the 10th, 2026. Uh, Probably everyone's up to speed with what's going on. The regime trying to get resources that they need and um, continuing to just oppose everything I support as a capitalist, which is private property rights, essentially. Landowners setting border policy, individuals setting trade policy, and um, seeking to resolve differences through negotiation peacefully before using violence. Um, so I know right now a lot of people still don't believe in my plans. Not a lot of people have read my book, but uh, maybe people who did have some concerns. Primarily, something that occurred to me that people might be concerned about is, I am suggesting in my book essentially that the government use the gold reserve to essentially um, help forestall famine once the ship goes down, and essentially create a new dollar that would be pegged to that gold reserve that would be redeemable in gold. Um, well, a lot of people don't think the gold reserve is there. Um, and so we need to address that possibility. And I did mention in the book, well, maybe some charity will be necessary. And um, you can't compel charity. So even though that is something that will be highly in demand, you can't compel that. So let's talk about other solutions. Once the dollar goes down, you're going to see competing currencies emerge throughout the world. My guess is that China is going to back the yuan with gold because that's what they have in reserve. They have a lot of gold, and if you make that redeemable for a portion of gold, you can stabilize that in a situation where global fiat currencies are collapsing. And it looks to me like global fiat currency collapse is where we're heading. It's always been a mystery: is the dollar going to collapse first or other currencies? We've known the dollar was screwed, but we haven't known, is every currency screwed? How fast are they screwed? But it's becoming more clear as we watch this unfold that it is every currency that is declining against real value. If you look at gold over the last few years, and this year it's now been joined. Well, I say this year, I mean 2025. So last year, it was joined by silver, copper, nickel, these other metals, platinum. But um, so that's what phase one of a currency collapse looks like. But at the same time, the dollar isn't collapsing against other currencies. The dollar, it's weak. It's at 99-ish, the DXY, but it's not collapsing. And it's actually regained some strength over the past week, which is solidifying this theory that it's actually all fiat currencies that are collapsing against real value. Um, so so China's going to back their currency, I expect, with gold. So that's one new currency. I call it a new currency because it's really going to be different once it's backed than the current paper yuan. Um, but so that's going to be one accounting system, one stable currency in the world. Some other countries also have gold that they can use to back their currencies. Excuse me just a minute. I gotta close this. Okay. Um, but not every country does. And if we assume the US does not because it's gone encumbered, what have you, we're going to need some different solutions in America. So I know a lot of people like cryptocurrencies, and certainly there's a possibility that some of those are things that people are going to use for transactions to the degree that they can exist without the dollar. And I don't know what degree that is because I'm not an expert in this, but I do think that with Tether and all this, there is relation to the dollar, which it could be problematic. So I'm not an expert in this, but I'm not someone who's gonna. I'm not saying that I don't think any crypto could possibly have any use case in that scenario. I don't. I don't want to make any claims about which crypto might retain a use case and might trade at a for real value. So you got to realize, like, well, first of all, so those are two. So you've got the gold-backed national currencies. You've got potentially cryptos. You've also got other commodities that people might trade as money. For example, in America, a fair number of people own silver. And throughout history, silver has been used as a trade unit throughout the world. And I want to show you something now. So this is a trade unit. This is a coin that was struck by Austria. Originally in, what was it, 17... Let me go back even further. In, what was it, 1486, in Tyrol, they came up with this coin, but it was a big coin. It was significant because it was the first really big silver trade unit coin since really ancient Athens. I mean, they had the denarius in Rome, but even when before the debasement, this had only 4 grams of silver, so it was still a pretty small coin. They made a big coin in Tyrol, but it didn't become a widely used coin. It was kind of a localized thing, almost a local experiment. It wasn't until 1519 in a place, Joashithol, something like that, that they created what became known as a thaler, which was named, so the last what's that word? Joish is thol. Well, the last bit of that is thol, and that's where thaler came from. So thaler became, so they minted a big silver coin, and it became an important trade unit in, well, this was in Austria. So this was the Holy Roman Empire. This became their coin soon after, late 1500s. They standardized these thalers, and it became a reliable trade unit. But like other issuers, they started debasing, started having irregular metal content, etc. And in the 1700s, this had become a real problem. And so this lady, Maria Theresa, she becomes the essentially the empress of this empire. Now, technically, her husband was the emperor because a woman couldn't be the empress. But she was politically, she had the power. He was just kind of a figurehead. Uh, and she had legally the political power. So she was the Archduchess of Austria. She was the Queen of Hungary, the Queen of Bohemia, and she she was she was an amazing queen, right? So that she takes over, and Austria's it's being invaded. The coinage is crap, the economy is crap, everything's crap, and she somehow gets these lords to rally to agree. We're gonna commit some capital, we're gonna commit some troops to the defense of the land, and one of the things she did, so she protects the country from invasion, but she also restores an economy. And one of the ways she does that is through coinage. So in 1740, she takes power. In 1741, she has a coin struck at a specific weight, and that weight doesn't change until her death in 1780. So this was a huge deal because they needed a standard trade unit. This is important in commerce. You need to know what you're getting. They appreciated her so much that once she died in 1780, they took the last coin, the 1780 version, and they started restriking it. So in 1781, they create another 1780 coin. It still says 1780 on it. And they do this year after year. Well, after a few years, the Holy Roman Empire decides, they need to debase their currency again. But what happened? So during her life, this trade unit was such a good coin that it started being used beyond Austria. It started being used throughout the Middle East, in North Africa. It became a widely used trade unit, used through a large part of civilization. And so Austria has this dilemma. They are creating this good coin, but for internal reasons that everyone wants, that they can charge seigniorage on, meaning they can the coin's worth more as a coin than it's worth as just a silver content because it's a recognizable unit. And so they can mint these things and make a profit. So they want to keep minting them because the Middle East demands these things. But they don't want to use them domestically because they want to debase their currency, because they want to increase government spending, etc. So they keep minting them, but they remove them as a currency unit and they no longer circulate them within Austria. They just keep minting them as an international trade unit. And so Austria has never stopped minting these coins. And they've never stopped putting that 1780 restrike on these coins. So what I got here is a 1780 restrike. That is a portrait of Maria Theresa. And if you look on this side, well, you're going to have to get some focus. I don't know if you can see it, but it says 1780 right about here. So that is the 1780 Maria Theresa Thaler. Um, and I don't know what year this coin was struck. It looks circulated. It looks like it's been around a while. This is a coin that could have been used in trade at some point in the last couple hundred years, somewhere in the Middle East, in North Africa. It could have been held by Stacker in Europe. I have no idea. I don't know what date it was struck. I don't know anything, but I do know it's silver. It's as easy as taking another piece of silver and hearing that noise to know that this is a silver coin, and it's the right weight. So that's all you need to know that you've got a real piece of silver, and that's all they needed to know as they were trading throughout the Middle East from the 1700s through the 1900s until everyone kind of got off metal and started using pure paper. So they continue to strike it today. Today it's more of a bullion coin that people just stack like they stack American Eagles or Britannias or any other sovereign bullion coin. So that's a bit of history. But the reason I'm telling you that history is because I want you to know that just you don't have to use something that the government says is money for it to be money. Yeah, these coins, Austria had no jurisdiction in the Middle East, in North Africa, in India, where some of these coins ended up. But it was still real value, and it was still real exchangeable value. Another thing I'm going to tell you is that at no time in history have we had as many good living trade units like this Thaler or like this Morgan dollar that I used for my ping test. These are standard, good, recognizable size coins that you can take you can be really careful to hold correctly and then drop on the ground. But I don't give a shit because this is my grab bag. I'm making a grab bag of test coins because I don't know what coin someone might show up with post collapse. And I want to have a sample coin so I can say, hey, does your coin look like my coin that I know is a good coin? Does it ping like my coin? Does it weigh like my coin? That's something I think if you're a stacker, you should have. Another thing you should have is a printed out list of weights and measures. So you're not left guessing or having to try to reference an internet that might have gone down. And this doesn't have to be the end of the world. This could be a power outage. This could be a natural disaster. Who knows? But it's good to have something physical that can tell you what you've got so you don't have to rely on the internet. So that's a resource we have. And we have a reasonable amount of that resource in the West. There aren't a lot of these coins out here, I wouldn't think, although there probably are a few stashes that have been passed down from people who migrated here, people who traveled there, what have you. I mean, like I said, these coins have gotten around. But there's a whole lot of Morgan dollars here. There's a whole lot of junk silver here. 90% dimes, quarters, half dollars. There's more good coinage than there's ever been in the world because we've had more years of good minting. And yes, some stuff's been melted down, but we got our modern coins. We've got our 1 ounces, we've got our fractionals, we've got our rounds. All of these are standard weights and measures that can be used for exchange post collapse. So that can be another monetary system. You've got the gold-backed yuan, you potentially got some cryptos, and you've got coinage that can exchange. Silver coinage and copper coinage, and copper nickel coinage. You know, most copper coinage is bronze, 95% copper with a little bit of tin, but there are some pure copper coins. I think that's what Italy struck. That's too much of a lesson for today. I'm leaving it with that. Well, these aren't hypotheticals. This unit of account really is failing. There really are a bunch of contracts that are in March for delivery that they can't deliver. The end really is in sight. Economics really is important. Yeah, I've written a book. It's got a lot of ideas about what to do when the unit of account fails and a bunch of people just got no clue what to do, and everything shut down and everything stopped working. So it'd be great if some people could read it. Let me know what they think.